You can be as loyal as you want to a company, put in the blood, sweat, and tears, but at the end of the day, that company's going to do whatever's best for them. And that day, for whatever reason, letting me go was the best thing. So I thought that, playing it safe was the right thing to do, getting a nice job, get the company car, the 401k, save all my money. Like, I followed this traditional route to realize, like, holy crap, it can all go up in smoke in an instant.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?
Hi everyone, I'm Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today I'm here with Brandon Cobb. Brandon was a former medical device sales rep before becoming a fund manager in Nashville, Tennessee, managing 22 million plus of new first-time homebuyer housing and build-to-rent communities. Brandon, we've had I've had the opportunity to speak with you before. Really enjoyed it, and now I'm thankful to have you on my podcast. So. Thank you so much for taking the time out today to be here. I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
Well, absolutely. The pleasure's all mine. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't we start with tell the listeners about yourself? Tell us your background. Kind of tell us, walk us through the life and times.
Well, long story. I'll make it really, really short. But had somebody told me that we would be inventing these new neighborhoods 8 years ago, I'd have looked at you like you had 8 heads. I never had an entrepreneur spirit. I didn't want to go work for myself. I was doing medical device sales. And unlike a lot of people, I don't have this story where I worked in corporate for 20, 25 years. I was miserable and I had this dream to go out and, start doing real estate development. In fact, the exact opposite. I loved being an employee. I absolutely loved what I did. I got to wear scrubs every single day to work, rub shoulders with surgeons. And, like a lot of people, I wanted freedom. I'm a young guy in his 20s. I wanted to make my parents proud. I knew that the job was going to be a means to an end. I didn't want to be tied down eventually. And I knew in some way or shape or form, if I did all the right routes, invested in the right retirement accounts and maxed out my 401ks, that I would eventually be able to, live a life where I'm just not tied down. And that all was fine and dandy until one day I was having the best day of my life as a sales rep. Like, those days where you just go and you're like killing it at work and your boss is really happy and sales are coming in and you're like, yes, I'm like really building this future. It was a Friday afternoon. I met my boss over in Starbucks. It was sunny. Spring was like knocking on the door. And I was just in the best mood because I had a great trial with a great doctor with a great hospital. And before I could tell my boss how excited I was about my day, he fires me. And I was shocked from that moment because I had all the sales awards. I lived, breathed, and loved what I did. It was, what did I do wrong? I could not figure that out. And that it was pretty important because I learned that nobody was going to look out for my financial well-being but me. You can be as loyal as you want to a company, put in the blood, sweat, and tears, but at the end of the day, that company's going to do whatever's best for them. And that day, for whatever reason, letting me go was the best thing. So I thought that, playing it safe was the right thing to do, getting a nice job, get the company car, the 401k, save all my money. Like, I'd followed this traditional route to realize, like, holy crap, it can all go up in smoke in an instant. And so that's what started my entrepreneur journey. I gave myself a 6-month ultimatum. I said, hey, if you can't figure out how to make money yourself during that period, then I can just go get another job. And so I started my own course on how to break into medical device sales. I said, hey, I was pretty good at this. A lot of people ask me how I got into the industry. Maybe I can teach them. I thought I wanted to be the next Tony Robbins. So I had this life coaching business. It turns out that not many people want to take life advice from a 27-year-old. I had to learn that the hard way. And I had like an online motivational blog, and all those businesses failed miserably. Sunk money into them, sunk hundreds of hours, all gone. But then I discovered this vehicle that you're and your audience is probably very aware of called real estate. And man, let me tell you, once I discovered real estate, it became very easy for me to see where the opportunity was. So I just cut ties with all those other businesses. I swept them under the rug, and I just focused on real estate. And it was kind of tough. There for a while, I was figuring things out. I kind of felt like this imposter because people would ask me what I did. And I said, oh, I'm a real estate entrepreneur. I own my own business. But I kind of felt like a fraud because I hadn't made any money yet. I was scared to hire people more skilled than me because of what they would think of me. So I had a lot of this imposter syndrome going on. And at the time, things were fine because I had all my retirement accounts. I had about $111,000 of savings saved up. And I was this single guy with no debt. So, man, those first 2 years, I burned through all my 401ks, burned through all my retirement accounts, burned through my $111,000 in savings, and ended up going pretty much unofficially bankrupt and racking up about $98,000 of credit card debt the first 2 years. So it took me 2 years to drain everything. And that's when the real lessons started to begin. That's when I started to really learn how to be a business owner and learn how to manage money, learn how to manage finances. And so, it's been an 8-year journey. I've done over 187 transactions. I've gone from a one-person business, and we've got a whole team of employees. I no longer feel like, I'm a fraud. I can say, hey, I've been in business for almost a decade. We've been very profitable. We've had some phenomenal years in business. And, I no longer have this imposter syndrome. And now I've been able, kind of similar to you, and I know what your audience is kind of going after. Real estate's really been a vehicle for me to help build the life that I want. Now I get to go on these I take about 6 weeks off a year to travel. I do a mom-son trip every year. She's a history teacher. We go somewhere she's never been able to go that's historic. We go take my dad on something that he loves to do, some trips that he's just not able to afford in the past. I do annual brother and sister trips. We just got back a couple weeks ago from Sedona, something that's on their bucket list. And I take my wife and we go, fly around the world several weeks out of the year, and we have fun. So I've really been able to utilize this vehicle, and I know it's possible for other people to use it as well. I tell you all this because I don't want somebody climbing the wrong ladder for 20, 30 years. I've seen that. My parents' friends have done it, to realize that it can all go in an instant, or that you spent 20, 30 years climbing the wrong corporate ladder. People need to start taking charge of their own financial future.
Yeah. So many good points there. And I couldn't agree more with the last part there, because I was thinking that, even as you were saying it, it's like you made the point that you were happy with what you were doing, like enjoyed medical sales, and then lost your job, like unexpectedly lost your job. And I think that it's important for people to realize that, like, it would be great if people realized it before it happened and started preparing for things like that. But it's unfortunate that, I've talked to a lot of people on the podcast that had similar experience where it's like, yeah, everything was good, and then one day I didn't have a job anymore. And it's like the world likes to think, believe that you're, having that job is the most stable thing that you can do, but you are always kind of at the mercy of someone else. If for whatever reason, they maybe no fault of your own, they may just not, may not be in the plans anymore. So it's important to realize that, and you can kind of protect yourself against that by, as you said, investing in your financial future, understanding your financial future, and then, looking at ways to expand income sources, whether it's passive or active, it doesn't really matter, just some other option. You said
it's a good point you bring up, just something, right? Like, it's sad that it does take this, rock bottom sometimes, or the rug just getting pulled out from underneath you. It's like, hey, start now. Don't wait for the bad thing to happen.
Yeah. It's just so sad when it does. I mean, I've talked to people that are, interested in investing. They were excited about it. And then they're like, 2 weeks later, I just got laid off. My husband just got laid off. And it's like the sort of entrepreneur investor piece of me is like, even more reason you should be investing. But when that happens, people are, it's a low time, and it's hard to think about it from a place of abundance. So it's like, that's why it's so much better to think about these things in advance of something bad happening. you you did face that moment, it seems, with sort of an abundance mindset where you said, okay, I'm going to give myself, time to start making money as an entrepreneur. And you know, burned through some money, but sometimes it takes that in the beginning. Tell us a little bit about, kind of, I don't know, you said you sort of ran out of all of the money. What was your focus on the real estate side? Like what asset class, what niche did you start with,
Mhm.
and what did you do at that point when you kind of realized, hey, this is a problem, I don't have any more any more reserve?
Yeah, so I mean, I remember it. I ran out of money. I'd racked up about $98,000 of credit card debt, trying to get just to keep the cash flow of the business going, keep the lights on. Right. I started flipping houses.
Okay.
First home I ever did, I got under contract from putting up a bunch of those "We Buy Houses" signs on telephone poles. And believe me, I'm like a by the book kind of person. So when I'm throwing all these signs up on these telephone poles and the police call, I'm like, oh my God, like freaking out. Like the codes department, I was
Yeah.
scared out of my wits. And it worked. It worked. Cashed in all my retirement accounts, bought the house cash, ended up driving an hour and a half every day, flipping that house. Fast forward 2 years, we'd built the business up. I think 2 years in, we were probably doing, somewhere between 20, maybe around 20, 25 houses a year, something like that.
Mhm.
And I did not know what to do. I'd hit a wall, and I had to go and I had to start making the adjustments that I needed in my business. Like one of them was I needed to adjust terms with the monthly payments to these hard money lenders. Right. So I realized that you can't really run a business off hard money lending when you're making monthly payments on like 13, 14, 15% interest payments on,
Yeah.
$2-3 million worth of real estate. You're just not going to have any money to run your business. And so I was like, hey, I need to start raising private money where there's no monthly payments and they just get paid out at the end when the property sells. That was one really big thing I did. The other was reaching out to people in my mastermind group who've navigated something similar and were able to give me advice. So they actually hopped on the call, and these are guys that had built these big house flipping businesses that had been down this road. We hopped in the QuickBooks and I shared my financials. I said, hey, here's what's going on. There was some stupid stuff that we had coming out that I wasn't tracking. I don't know if you ever bought anything on a credit card and just kind of forgotten about it, but there's probably $2,000-3,000 a month of stupid stuff that I'd signed up for that was these one-time annual payments that you just
Yeah.
don't know until it comes out. So I got refunds on all that. I cleaned up everything. And I think at that point is when I hired a bookkeeper, because one thing I noticed was on my beautiful Excel sheets, because I'm such an amazing accountant, the number that I thought I was going to get at the sale of each home didn't match what was on the HUD. I would end up getting a lot more money on my HUD. I'm like, what's going on? And I learned through hiring a bookkeeper and getting my accounting straight that, holy crap, you're going over budget, 5, 10, $15,000 a house times, 7, 8 houses sometimes. I'd have like 150, $200,000 locked up in these houses of my own money. And I did not know that. I wasn't even privy to it because I didn't have a good accounting system. So when I was able to get a better system in place and make sure that we could pull my money out of the homes and make sure that our capital was on the sidelines in our business and not in the houses, that was another key thing that I did to clean that up. I'm sure there's probably more I could go into if I really dug in, but those are the big ones that really came to mind.
No, and those are important. I think people people probably don't recognize how cash intensive a house flipping business is, right? Like you might
Mhm.
flip a house here. Like you hear about people like, I'm going to try, especially with everything that you would see on HGTV, like I'm going to flip a house. I flipped the house. I made, X amount of dollars. It was great. But uh, to actually create a business out of that and be doing, like I said, 20, 25 houses a year, there's a lot of money tied up there. And so all of those pieces become, every dollar becomes that much more important. And if you're on top of it, that might be the difference between doing 20 houses or 25 houses, and then you have you're essentially losing the profit you would have made on those additional houses because of just bad accounting or bad bookkeeping. Realistically, the bookkeeping piece is so huge. Um, so as you went through that, kind of made transitions and worked some of that stuff out, talk to us about a bit about kind of the progression of your journey in real estate. And I know now you're doing new builds and stuff. I guess, how did you work through that process and kind of change your strategy?
Yeah, the light bulb moment for us went off when we had an opportunity to buy a home that was fire damaged. The whole second story was crispy. And we had the opportunity to buy it for less than what the land was worth. So we're like, okay, this has got to be a deal because we could just flip this lot to another builder and make money. The foundation's good. We had done some full gut rehabs at the time where, I mean, it's literally a foundation and a skeleton, just the framing. Like,
Yeah.
we just ripped everything out. So that's basically harder than a new construction project, but we didn't know that at the time. So this project allowed us an opportunity to go in and say, hey, let's just cut out all the black stuff, hire a structural engineer, and reframe on top of the existing framing and foundation because it's good. At the same time, we had a full gut rehab going on around the corner. That full gut rehab took about 8-9 months to do and sell. We made $50,000 on it. The new build took 5 months to build, and we made over $120,000 on it. And we're like, wait a minute, we can do that. We can build homes faster and make more money on it. Let's do that. I mean, it was like 3 times the amount of money. So we scrapped everything. We said, we're just going to focus on new builds. And that's exactly what we did. Now, big note, when you are building houses, it's very capital intensive, right? When you're flipping houses, you can usually get a loan to cover almost all of your costs on it. Not so much when you're building. There's some down payment money and the interest payments are coming out. And so we really needed a way to continue to keep our own capital in the business and not in the houses. And that's where HBG Capital was born. That was our investor-facing brand where we were able to go out and raise money to do these new builds and keep all of our own money on the sidelines. And Jason, when we did that, man, things just blew up. Like, we were really able to scale this thing. And at one point, we had a problem finding a good contractor. And so what do you do when you have a problem and it doesn't exist? You fix it. You become the contractor. So we started HBG Construction. So now we've got our own in-house financing. We've got our own construction company. We're in a unique position because we're competing for all these lots that investors who have to hire a builder are competing with, and they have to cut the builder in that. They got to add $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 to it. So all of a sudden, we had this unique advantage where our costs were less and we could make a deal out of something that a lot of people couldn't. So we scaled that up, doing about 30 homes, and realized, wow, wouldn't it be easier instead of traveling all across town to these onesie twosie builds, these little tear down lots? Man, what if we just built 30, 40 homes on one plot of land? Oh my gosh, showing up to the same area every single day, better pricing from contractors, bulk materials, just cookie cutter home over and over. And then we saw why the national home builders and big builders built in the same areas. It just made sense. And so that led us to going out and finding parcels of land that we could do that with. Now, we were getting ready to go vertical on 36 townhomes when we got a knock on the door. Someone had noticed that we had all the roads, all the sewer, all the water installed in the land, and it was basically ready to go vertical on these homes. And they said, hey, we really like your development. We want to buy it. And we said, I'm sorry, it's not for sale. And they said, well, here's what we'll offer you for your land. And we said, it's for sale. You can have it. And that's how we got kind of pivoted over from building to doing land development. And so fast forward today, HBG Capital is strictly focused on the entry-level housing market. We take farmland and we turn it into entry-level housing communities that national home builders can build their homes on. So we put the roads, the infrastructure, and everything in. And so there's a huge value add to that. There's like 6 key things that I really like about it that we've implemented to help reduce risk. It's on the 6 keys to mitigating risk in 2024, when we came out with this. And that's, that the sky's the limit now. You've got, out of the past 5 years, no builders bought anything. COVID, 2020 and 2022, 2023, when the interest rates went up. So in a 5-year period, 2 years, nobody bought anything. We already have this affordable housing shortage. So for the foreseeable future, we feel like entry-level housing has a very, very nice runway for demand.
Yeah, that's fantastic strategy. And the I think one of the cool things that I really enjoy on this podcast is just like hearing all the different ways that people have success in real estate. And it's like a lot of people like yourself have found it in different areas and kind of had these light bulb moments and transition to, we're going to do this strategy, this strategy, this strategy. It's in land development. I think I don't even think that I understand it fully, but like the more people I talk to about it, it just seems like there's so many different ways to be involved and different points where you could exit or enter that development, where it's like, you're buying raw land and entitling it, and you're putting in the roads, utilities, building the houses. Like, I mean, there's just can you walk us through kind of the process of, I guess, purchase to what people see when they see a housing development? You mind describing that?
Yeah, so there's different phases. Phase 1 is called the entitlement process or rezone, right? If it's already got the correct zoning, then all you need to do is entitle it. What in the world does entitlement mean? If anybody's ever traveled to a third world country, you've probably got an appreciation for America. We've got sanitary water. The systems flow. I was in Istanbul a couple years ago, and if you notice in Istanbul, the whole city is just littered with signs everywhere. Like, it just looks tacky. Like, you can literally go put a sign anywhere in any condition at any location in the whole city, and it just looks bad. There's all these beautiful systems that each municipality has set up to make sure that the community is what it needs to be. We've got these amazing communities set up, and you have an entity that's in charge of that. It's the municipality, and that municipality is made up of different departments. You've got the utility department that's in charge of like your sewer and water. This is like your electric department, who you pay the electricity bill to or who you pay the water bill to. You get the fire department. They're the ones that look at each development before it's built and say, okay, the homes aren't going to be too far from the power lines to catch fire. You've got, are there fire hydrants every so often? They bless it. You've got the zoning department that makes sure that it's in line with the correct zoning. So these departments of the city, they have to bless the development because they've got their expertise. That's the entitlement process. It's basically the city departments blessing and double checking and making sure that this development fits all the parameters for the community. There's a ton of value that we create when you go through that entitlement process, because a piece of land that's just farmland is worth a lot less than a piece of land that's been approved for a 200 home community. I mean, There's a big value. So that's the entitlement portion. So you go through, you hire a civil engineer to create a design, a concept plan, like, hey, this is what we're thinking, and you take it to the city, and you then get that preliminary plat approved. That basically says, hey, we're going to approve this development contingent on the civil drawings meeting our expectations. And so at that point, you're kind of off to the races. You can now spend some money. You're now spending money for that civil engineer to design that development. These are where the civil drawings come in place. So the slope of the roads, how wide they are, where the fire hydrants are going to go, how big the sewer lines are, how much grading and slope there's going to be. All that's designed by the civil engineer. Once you get it approved by the city and stamped by the state, you have an entitled project that you can go out and you can sell to a developer. Phase 1 is pretty much done. Phase 2 is when you go and you put the roads, the sewer. So you actually take that civil drawing and you bring it to life. You grade the land, you put the roads in, you put the water, you put the sewer. That's phase 2. And then phase 3 is you actually, you build the homes. You can actually go for it. And so this is one of our key risk mitigation strategies is we have multiple exit strategies built in because I can sell it. I can get it entitled and force appreciate it, kind of similar to multifamily. You go in and you increase the rents by renovating it or executing a value add strategy, and it force appreciates the value of that multifamily project. Same thing when we go in and we get the land entitled, it force appreciates it. And here's the beautiful thing, Jason. All this happens before we buy it. We don't buy anything until we have force appreciated the value by getting it entitled. Once that happens, we can do a couple things. Number one, we can buy it with our investor partners, own it outright, and we can just land bank it. This is a great strategy when there's a ton of development that's happening around this parcel of land where we know we can add an extra layer of forced appreciation once all the surrounding development is done. So that's exit strategy number one. The second is we can go contract with a national home builder, Ryan Homes, Lennar, or D.R. Horton, and they'll say, hey, as soon as you finish this development, putting all the roads and everything in, we'll buy it from you. So it's a pre-sold development. We'll go and we'll raise money and we'll put everything in and we'll sell it to a builder. That's exit strategy number two. And then exit strategy number three, we've got a history of this, and we're not doing a lot of this right now based on where the market's at with interest rates and everything and absorption, but we can do it, and that's build the houses. So we really like this strategy because we have multiple exit strategies that are lined up in the event that something happens.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question? I know I said a lot there.
No, that's amazing. No, that's amazing explanation. And I didn't realize that you could basically have all the entitlement in place before you actually purchase the land. So that's that's almost no risk, I guess. Not there's no zero risk, but certainly risk limited. So that's, I love that strategy. So I know you said you sort of vertically integrated your construction, but if you're not building the houses anymore, are you using that in another way? Like how are you kind of utilizing that branch or that arm?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so what got us to doing 20 million a year is not what's going to get us to doing $100 million a year. Vertical integration is great to a certain point, but once you really start blowing out of the water and growing and scaling, you have to grow and scale multiple companies simultaneously. And we realized for us, the hindrance on our growth was our general contracting business. That was what was holding us back. That was the most difficult business for us to grow. And so luckily for us, as you go and you do bigger, better projects, you can contract with bigger and better contractors. So the level of opportunity, let's see how to put this. A players are attracted to A plus opportunities. The problem with flipping houses is it's really a C minus opportunity, and that's attracts C minus contractors. That's why we had that headache. And then as we started building houses, okay, we got some B minus builders, still not in the A's, but a little bit better opportunity. Now, when you get into doing these big developments, these are A plus contractors because it's an A plus opportunity. We realize there are people out there that can do a much better job of us handling that contracting side. And so we pretty much just outsource it. We've got some partnerships in place with some contractors that can do turnkey development work with us. It's kind of like a little bit of a partnership because we do help out with some of the in-house stuff, but they pretty much take care of everything. That allows us to just go find deals and raise money and scale.
That's great. I think that there's so much right there that people should go back and replay that piece because it's like that applicable to anything, applicable to any business that you're, working on. You find other people, other quality people, and partner with them and grow your business that way. And you focus on what you're best at, and usually what you're best at is going to be your like highest revenue producing activities. So it's just so many different places where that example could be applied, and I just think important for people to understand. Well, Brandon, let me switch gears. I want to ask you the questions I ask every guest. The first one, of course, is related to the name of the show, being Know Your Why. So what is your why? Really a fascinating journey with a lot of really good pieces for people to take and learn from, but kind of what keeps you moving in that direction? What keeps you motivated?
My why is to create as many unforgettable experiences in life with those that I love. Period. This is why I do the annual mom son trips, and we always go somewhere historic that she's taught for over 25 years but never visited. It's why I go and do fun things like take my dad and do the Bourbon Trail or something like that every year. It's why I go to Sedona and other places to hike and experience the outdoors with my siblings, is because I think that your life is basically the sum of your experiences, right? And I think that the earlier on you can start gathering those experiences, they pay dividends. So much like a stock that you buy early on in life, by the time you die, it's going to have paid you a lot more dividends if you're younger rather than when you buy it if you're 70 or 80. Same thing with your life experiences. Those experiences pay dividends. I would much rather have amazing experiences earlier on and do things with people that I want to do them with so that I can hold those memories throughout my entire life. So, for me, my business is just a tool to give me the flexibility, the freedom, and the money to be able to create these life experiences.
Yeah, yeah, and that's it. It's such a good reminder of why you do all this stuff. It's not just for dollar signs. It's really important what goes around or what
Yeah.
comes along with that. It's a tool. Um, Tell us something about yourself that isn't common knowledge. Special skill, a hobby, just something to let listeners know you better.
A few years ago, I was down in Atlanta and got introduced to a friend who showed me a hobby that I've been obsessed with over the past few years, and that is very high end steak. I'm talking about Wagyu steak from Australia, Japan. I was always of the knowledge, like I like steak, but I did not realize there were different grades of steak beyond what we have here in the United States. I did not realize there were different cuts. Everyone's familiar with like the ribeye, the New York strip, the filet, maybe some skirt steak. There's a whole other world out there. You've got Denver steaks. There are there's some hanger steak. There's beef marbleization scores in Australia of like 12 plus. I mean, there's all these different cuts that I didn't even know were out there at these different grades. And it has just been so much fun diving into this hobby. You can smoke steak, you can smoke whole steaks. Like picanha is one of my favorite cuts I discovered. I didn't even know that was like a thing. So steak is something that I'm really into.
Oh man, it's funny because you say that. I have also got pretty interested. I mean, probably not to that level where I haven't learned all the cuts and everything, but I did not. My mom, like, this is a she won't be surprised to hear me say my mom wasn't a great cook growing up. So
Yeah.
she, many qualities, that wasn't one of them. But I didn't even, because of my early experiences, I thought I don't like steak. Like that's what I thought until probably I was in my 20s and like maybe even close to 30, and I don't even know why I ordered a steak at a restaurant, like a nice restaurant, and it was like the most amazing thing I'd ever eaten, and I didn't know why it was that way. And so like since then, I would get a steak at a restaurant, and then relatively recently, last year or two, I've started like cooking, like you said, like you can smoke it, like there's a bunch of different ways to do it. And so it just so happens that my personal trainer went to culinary school, and so like we talk about cooking things a lot while I'm working out. And that's been a big piece of it. It's like just this. He like we had we were like competing briskets basically, like where I made one and he got a New Zealand Wagyu from some like friend of his that was from that had like a meat distribution thing, and it was like you can't compete. You literally cannot compete with that cut of meat than you would like even if you got whatever the highest grade is you go at your local grocery store. Like it's not the same. And so I never realized any of that. It's pretty fascinating to
I'm gonna
see.
warn everybody, if you go this route and you start buying these steak, because you can get them for the price of like what you'd pay for a nice steak at a restaurant. You can cook them at home. It will ruin restaurant steak for you for the rest of your life. There's no going back. Like I cannot eat restaurant steak because it's just not the same grade as all these upgrades. So you've been warned.
Yeah, no, 100% true. 100% true. When people hear this and they want to connect with you, what's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, so if you're somebody who's interested in potentially using land to diversify your real estate portfolio, if you're interested in building a legacy and creating passive income from real estate, like I know a lot of your audience members are, you can find more about us at hbgcapital.net. It's pronounced Harry Bob Gary Capital.net. I joked that the .com was stolen, so it is .net. But on that website, we've got a ton of free resources. We've got our ebook, 100 Questions Business Owners Ask Before Investing. I wrote that book because I got a call one day from one of our investors, asked if I could do him a favor and help his friend out. His friend had lost all of his investment in a real estate deal that he lent to somebody. And it became very evident early on in this phone call that this person was green. They did not know how to vet the paperwork, vet the sponsor, vet the deal. And unfortunately, there was nothing they could do. They lost 100% of their money. And I left that conversation thinking, gosh, what could I do to prevent this from happening to somebody else? And I'm a big believer that questions unlock the answers we need to make more informed investment decisions. Had this person been armed with the right questions, he could have got the answers that he needed, and I'm convinced that he would not have lost all of his money. So I put together that book, 100 Questions Business Owners Ask Before Investing. Grab it at hbgcapital.net, and I'm convinced that you will be a better vetter of real estate deals if you read that book. You can also listen to us on the Recession Resistant Real Estate Radio. I believe we got an episode with you.
Somehow muted myself. Sorry. No, definitely check out that book. And I do think that there are some really important pieces that, you have to ask. Like you may not find that, I would imagine you'd agree, like maybe not every one of the 100 questions is applicable to every single deal or asset class or what, but the ability to know what you should be asking about, I think is incredibly important for people. And that gives them a very well laid out reference for them.
Yep, 100%.
Awesome. Well, Brandon, this has been great. I truly appreciate you being on, taking out the time, explaining everything. I think that's about the best explanation I've ever heard of land development. So people should save that clip for sure, and connect with you if they have interest in that space. So thank you so much for being on. I truly appreciate it.
It's an honor. Thanks.
Folks listening, please make sure you connect with Brandon and rate, and review the show so we can continue to get more great guests. Thank you all for listening.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?